What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and injuries have absolutely decimated fantasy football. We have had Christian McCaffrey go on IR. You've had Deebo Samuel's out now. Pacheco's out. You have A.J. Brown missing Monday Night Football. Everyone has holes in their lineup everywhere, which makes it a perfect time to make trades. So, to fix your roster, to fill the holes in your lineup, today we're going to talk through 8 must-buy trade targets for Week 3 of the fantasy football season. As always, if you enjoyed, make sure to comment below, subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed. Let's go.
VVS stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm frozen. She gon' let me.
All right, now if you are hurting at the flex spot at wide receiver, we're going to talk at the top here with Brandon Aiyuk. Now, I will say we're going to get deeper as we go, right? Not all of these guys are going to be second-round picks in fantasy football, but Brandon Aiyuk is struggling, right? He's the wide receiver 59 right now. He's off to a slow start. This is a very obvious buy target, but if you can buy him low from an owner who doesn't really quite understand what's happening here, I would, right? The slow start was kind of expected. He had this holdout in the offseason. When you come back from that, you're going to start slow. You're going to have some rust. It's going to take a little bit to get up to game speed, right? He's not in practice. He's not in the preseason game. So there is a lot of cobwebs to be shaken off here. But we know the 49ers are a Fortune 500 stock. They do really well every year. They're going to score a lot of points. That is pretty much for certain here. And we now have not just McCaffrey out on IR, but Deebo Samuel now missing a few weeks. And what that does is it opens up a lot of volume for Brandon Aiyuk, where that has been the only missing piece of his game to this point, right? Last year, he was the wide receiver 36 in expected points, so that's just based on your volume, your targets, your air yards, your ADOT, your red zone targets. How many points should you have put up? Based on his volume last year, he should have been the wide receiver 36. Instead, he was the wide receiver 15. So if we now no longer have McCaffrey, and we no longer have Deebo, and a lot of those targets can go towards Brandon Aiyuk, now we're really cooking. Because if he was the wide receiver 15 on wide receiver 36 usage, what if he's the wide receiver 15 in expected points per game, right? This is somebody who could be a top 5 receiver with that kind of usage. Now, of course, not going to last a full season, but we've seen with Deebo, sometimes his injuries can linger. McCaffrey's out on IR. There's a lot opening up for him. I think at the very least, he will bounce back. He'll be an every week startable wide receiver 2. So if there is a buying opportunity, I would absolutely see if you could get in there. Now, of course, when we do our buys and sells, we are going to go over to the fantasycalc.com database here. And I'll make sure I put a link down below in the description, in the comment section, whatever. Yell at me if I don't. Now, what happens here is this just takes into account real trades from Sleeper, Yahoo, whatever, and it spits them out here. This is going to be for one quarterback, redraft leagues, 10 to 12 teams, half PPR to full PPR, 2 to 4 players in the deal. And let's see, what can we give up for Brandon Aiyuk right now? Wow, so Drake London straight up for Aiyuk. That one's really close. That's not really solving a problem, so I'll pass on that. We'll try and identify like a few that make sense here. You have Singletary, Aiyuk for Rice. I'm all good on that. This is actually an interesting one. McCaffrey and Freiermuth for Aiyuk, Pickens. I'd probably want more if I'm giving up McCaffrey, as crazy as that might sound. Odunze and Tank Dell. I actually think Odunze and Tank Dell are both buys, but if you're in a league, this is start 8, so what's that? Only 2 wide receiver, 2 flex. If I had a lot of wide receiver depth, I would debate something like this. I mean, Aaron Jones for Aiyuk, right? Let's say somebody really needs running back help. I absolutely love that deal. And that's actually pretty even according to their trade value. Lockett and Pittman, oh, for sure. If I could just bundle up these two and get Aiyuk, I absolutely would. I have Zack Moss and Derrick Henry as trade targets later on in this video. But I think I would 100% sell Zack Moss for Aiyuk. Henry is where it gets close. If I had too many running backs, I would debate it. Let's see. Is there anything else that sticks out? Dobbins for Aiyuk for sure, and Deebo for Aiyuk for sure as well. Now, moving on from that, let's talk about our second buy target here. And this one, I'm curious to see how you guys react to this one. All right, this is going to be Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is who I have as my second trade target here. He was a fade for me all offseason. I want to just make it very clear when I'm fading a player, it's not because I don't like the player, I don't think he's good at football. It's because I don't like the price, right? Derrick Henry was a second-round pick in redraft leagues. I wasn't a fan of that price. So far, that has worked out. But if Derrick Henry was a 5th-round pick in your home league, I would say that's probably a fine pick. So if now, 2 weeks into the season, he has 2 dud games, he's the RB17, but you really drafted him to be like an RB1 and really be good for your team. If you can buy him for 5th-round prices now, it would be dumb of me to say, well, now I'm not interested, because everything we do in fantasy is price-oriented. So if the price has gone down on Derrick Henry, I'm now willing to buy. Now, through 2 games, it's gone about as bad as it could go for Derrick Henry, 13.4 half PPR points. You drafted him to be your RB1. He's the RB17 right now. The Ravens look bad. They're 0-2. They lose to the Raiders. But here's the good news, all right? I think that the 2 previous matchups have been kind of nightmares for this team. They get rid of Simpson, the left guard. They get rid of Moses, the right tackle. They both come to my Jets. Their offensive line, they have what the hell is his name? It's like Suamatia out of BYU. They have a rookie on the offensive line. It's just not the unit it usually is. And when you couple that with Max Crosby and Chris Jones, that becomes an issue and something really hard to overcome. So it was already nightmare matchups. They lose both. But the good news is that Derrick Henry still has juice, right? And when we have these older players, there is a risk every year that week 1 happens and they look bad. But Derrick Henry, he is the 6th best PFF rushing grade right now. He has the same amount of runs of 15 or more yards as Devon Achane, Breece Hall, and Bijan Robinson. He's still at 2.3 fantasy points over expected per game. So that's based on his expected points, how much is he exceeding that? He's still at 2.3. He's been like a positive FPOE guy his entire career. If we saw that get to negative, that would be a huge, huge red flag. In the offensive line, it's weaker than it is in years past, the Ravens, but it's not terrible. 13th best run block win rate according to ESPN, 23rd best run block grade on PFF. So it's not a terrible unit. Is it a top 5 unit? Not at all. But a lot of Derrick Henry's best years with the Titans, they didn't have some top 5 unit on the offensive line. They were pretty much fine, in his last few years when he was still a good fantasy asset. And I mean, we all know the stat with Derrick Henry that when he is it's not even a stat. It's just very much a fact that he needs a certain game script to succeed, right? You can't have a game script where you're trailing in the 4th quarter. Justice Hill comes in, running routes, keeping Derrick Henry off the field. What you need is the Ravens to win and to be on top for a lot of the game so that Derrick Henry is just running between the tackles. They're salting away time. They're just imposing their will on the defense. And that's going to come here soon, right? We haven't seen it in the first 2 weeks, but when we look at 4 for 4, this is actually a really cool tool that I think is maybe free on their site. I'm not sure. But you can look at the look-ahead lines for every single team, and the Ravens are only underdogs in 1 game the rest of the way, which is plus 1.5 at Cincinnati. Now, of course, they're not guaranteed to win when you're -1 at Cleveland, -3 versus the Buffalo Bills, but Vegas is still taking this team very seriously. So I'm not going to say, well, now the Ravens suck. They're not going to win games. As of now, they should still win plenty of games here. And we're going to have a game here very soon for Derrick Henry where he rebounds, he gets the game script you're looking for, he scores 2 or 3 touchdowns, and he has over 100 rushing yards, and all of a sudden, he's an RB1 again. And when that happens, I hope that you bought before that. Especially right now, everyone's running backs are hurt. Everyone's running backs are weak. So if you're weak at running back and you want to go and try and buy low on Derrick Henry, I think you absolutely should. Now, in terms of what we can actually trade in return for Derrick Henry, let's kind of see. Let's see. Because I am curious. I will be honest. There's a chance that we pull this up, and I don't like any of these. Let's see. So Xavier Worthy for Derrick Henry. I actually would do that. I like I like Xavier Worthy, and he's actually another trade target in this video. But if I had Worthy, and let's say it was even like a, what is this, a start 8, 2 wide receiver, 2 flex. Maybe my flex spots were sick, and I drafted like Marv, Olave, Jefferson, and I just didn't really need Xavier Worthy in the flex, and my RB1, maybe my RB1's Pacheco, and it was a hero RB team. I think that's absolutely fine. I don't think that you're going to get that, but I'm just saying, I absolutely would do Xavier Worthy for Derrick Henry. What else sticks out? I would also do, some of these aren't all that realistic. This one's actually interesting. Jaden Reed and David Montgomery for Derrick Henry. I wouldn't do that. I'll be honest. I would not do that. Let's see. Would I trade McCaffrey straight up for Derrick Henry? If it was my McCaffrey, I would certainly debate it. I don't think I would, but if I was 0-2, down bad, I reach out to everybody else and nobody's giving me anything, right? Like nobody's even giving me, I'm trying to think of like back end RB1s. No one's giving me Jonathan Taylor. No one's giving me, Gibbs. I would debate it, but it wouldn't be what I'm going for here. Let's see, does anything else stick out? I mean, of course, Raheem Mostert. Let's try one more screen here. Because this is the issue that I'm probably lower on Derrick Henry than most. Rashee Rice for Derrick Henry and McConkey. I'm just not selling Rashee Rice is kind of my issue. I'm not really selling DK Metcalf. Devontae for Derrick Henry. I can't do that. Yeah, so this is going to be a bit of a problem. Let's see. Judy and Pacheco, that's just not going to happen, I don't think. Bijan for Derrick Henry, no. Swift and Nico for Derrick. No, I can't. I would do Waddle for Henry straight up. I don't think that's on the itinerary. Okay, so what I'm going to say, man, if you have McCaffrey and no one's biting and Derrick Henry's the best you can do, I think I probably take it, to be honest with you. But yeah, that's all the trades I can get. So, buy at your own risk. See what you can do for Derrick Henry. See if anybody is freaking out about it. But I could not find anything that stuck out as like a must trade. But I think that there's going to be spots here like Pittman and Najee Harris. I mean, that's one I didn't point out, but I would do that. Like if I had Pittman, I had Najee, and I just like wanted to make a very clear upgrade at running back, I would. So I don't know. We found a couple that made sense. We found a couple that I would be open to. Again, I mean, that's my guy Xavier Worthy. I would trade my guy Xavier Worthy for Derrick Henry if I needed the running back help. Now, our next trade target here. This is going to be quick because we talked about him last week, but Chris Olave. All right. I talked about him last week. So many people were in the comments. Don't trust Olave. Ron, I love your advice, but you're an idiot for saying Olave. Olave never works out. Never this. He's the wide receiver 51 right now. So you guys are like kind of correct, but I just fundamentally disagree. The Saints are the best offense in football right now. They don't seem to be slowing down. They did it, they did it against the Panthers. It was like, okay, well, whatever. Well, they come out this week and they blow the doors off Dallas at Dallas, which is pretty crazy. They now have a dome game this next week versus the Eagles. Olave should have a big bounce back game there. And after a really quiet week 1, he puts up 4 catches for 81 yards, which isn't anything crazy. It's still just enough under the radar for him to be attainable. But we have a stat here from J.J. Zacharyson. After his 8% target share in week 1, he saw a 43% target share in week 2. Just have to remember, they killed the Cowboys so bad that they only had like 16 pass attempts, right? This is going to come back up to like 30-ish the rest of the way. They're not going to we'll see. I mean, maybe the Saints go undefeated, but I don't think they're going to. They're probably going to settle around like 30 pass attempts. Teams are going to have a lot more of tape on this Clint Kubiak offense, and things should settle out where they actually have to pass the ball. Olave also got tackled on the 1-yard line, which if he scored a touchdown, he would have had a huge week. So I think big weeks are coming from Olave. This offense looks good. Olave is the centerpiece of the target totem pole here, and that's a guy I want on my teams. And we look at what we can get in terms, or we can give for Olave. Let's see here. I do wonder if people have been selling low. I imagine there's a lot of excitement over the Saints, though. But I mean, I would give likely straight up for him. Dobbins, I would if I didn't need. I don't think that Dobbins is a sell candidate. I know that he's like a very popular sell candidate. People are like, well, something's gonna happen soon, but I would just kind of ride the hot hand. But if you were in a spot where you didn't need Dobbins wasn't really going in your lineup, maybe like your wide receiver 2 at this point, it's like Tyler Johnson. You're just down bad. Debo's hurt. Puka's hurt. I think you could absolutely do Dobbins for Olave. What else? DJ Moore for Olave McLaurin. I think I would take Olave straight up over DJ Moore. So if you could trade DJ Moore for Olave and a plus, I would. What else? I think I would do, like I said, DJ Moore is a guy I would trade straight up for him. Jamar Chase for Olave and Dobbins, I'm all set on that one. I would take Olave straight up over Waddle, but I don't think you're going to get that deal. Well, let's find one more that I like. I actually like Brian Robinson rest of season, but if I could sell Brian Robinson for Olave, I would. And if I could sell Jordan Mason for Olave, I would as well. So a lot of this with like the positional stuff is like if you have an extra running back and you need a wide receiver, I think Olave is a good target in that spot. Now, we have a 2-for-1 special here. Our 4th and 5th trade targets here. Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy. Let's talk about Travis Kelce first here, right? Pretty much, Pacheco goes down. we have data over the last 3 seasons in terms of pass rate over expectation. So this is just simply 1st and 10, what do teams across the league, what rate are they passing at? This particular team, the Chiefs, how much are they passing above and below that? And then they take that for every single situation. So 2nd and long, 3rd and short, whatever. And here we can see through the first 2 weeks, they've been at a minus 1% pass rate over expectation. Last year, they were plus 7%. Year before that, plus 11%. Year before that, plus 10%. So we should see a lot more passing, especially with Isaiah Pacheco getting hurt. So now we have Pacheco getting hurt. We should get more passes because of that. They don't have a running back they really trust, right? You have Carson Steele, you have Samaje Perine, but neither of them are as good as Pacheco. You also have Hollywood Brown out for the season, so now things are getting condensed, right? So higher volume. And not only a higher volume where it's like a bigger pie here, but everyone now has a bigger slice of the pie because Marquise Brown is hurt. So that's exciting. Travis Kelce should be in the thick of this pie, getting a lot of this work. And the Chiefs right now are the 14th team in terms of passing yards per game. That's going to go up with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes here. And when we look at Kelce, I don't think that he is just, I don't want to call it forgot how to play tight end, but he's running 86% of the routes. So that just means in terms of pass plays for the Chiefs, he's running a route on 86% of those. That's a really high number. This is Fantasy Life's utilization report. That is 6th among tight ends. So I think what would really spook me with Kelce is if this was like 68%, right? Where he's kind of taking a backseat role and he's like saving himself and he's only, running a route on 2/3 of passing plays. That's not the case right now. And I just don't believe that he's a 13% target per route run guy. So what that means is his targets should come back down to earth. He should see, his usual like 20% plus target share in a good passing offense. I think that better days will be ahead for Kelce. I know that there's a lot of like, I've called him like half a, celebrity before. I'm not really all that panicked on Kelce. I think better days are ahead. All the elite tight ends besides Trey McBride are struggling right now. I think Kelce, to me, is one of the safer ones to go out there and buy. Again, I would just be shocked if he's magically this 14% target share guy. Now, we also have Xavier Worthy, and he has pretty much a similar buy case, right, where huge week 1 comes out here. I didn't even mention with Kelce, he's the tight end 28 right now. He's been awful through 2 weeks, but I think he's going to bounce back. Xavier Worthy has a huge week 1, week 2 a dud. And there's like 2 sides of the Xavier Worthy camp, right? Where one of them that I'm on, I think that he's a good player, super explosive, had 2 touchdowns in his first game, down week in week 2, not the end of the world. But there's another group of people that, he only had like 3 targets in week 1, and then week 2 he sucks. So he's not even like a real receiver who can command targets. But I like Xavier Worthy as a guy that is now going to get carries with the absence of Isaiah Pacheco. So Xavier Worthy is going to get more carries. He should get worked more into the passing game. He's going to be kind of like what Jameson Williams is for the Lions right now, but for the Chiefs, and that to me is a really valuable player in fantasy football. And the big thing to note with rookies, we say it all the time, shout out to Michael Dubner, shout out to Jack Miller over at Establish the Run. As the season goes on, rookie wide receivers score more points, veterans decline. So Xavier Worthy is a guy you can buy right now. You can put him in your flex for big boom weeks, and then hopefully by like weeks 12 on, he is in every week. You have to get this guy in your lineup attached to Patrick Mahomes, which to me sounds like a pretty nice upside case. Now, when we talk about what we can buy these players for, let's check it out. Let's first look at Xavier Worthy. Let's first look at Travis Kelce here in the trade database. Let's see. I have to be honest, I think that this is actually going to be one of the more cheap ones. Whoa, Aiden Hutchinson. We have an IDP league here. Would I prefer Kelce or Pitts straight up? I'd prefer Kelce over Pitts if you guys are kind of curious where I'm at in terms of rest of season rankings. Kelce and Najee for Demon. I actually would do that all day. If I could go David Montgomery down to Najee, Kelce, I would. Amari Cooper, James Conner. Let's see. Is anything else? Like, I'm looking for someone that's like kind of Aaron Jones for Travis Kelce. You know what? I absolutely would do that. Jordan Mason, like if Jordan Mason wasn't going in my lineup and I like needed a tight end bad, I would do Jordan Mason for Travis Kelce. Let's find one more. Would I do Evan Ingram? Oh, this is actually kind of a perfect one. Montgomery might be a tier 2 high at running back, but if this could be, Jerome Ford instead. I'm trying to think through like kind of dusty, if this could be Jerome Ford or Zamir White plus Evan Ingram to get Travis Kelce, I would. But this to me is probably like the absolute highest I would pay. Montgomery plus Ingram. If I could take an Ingram and Njoku, a Ferguson, one of those like fake elite tight ends add a piece and go get Kelce, I absolutely would. Now, in terms of Xavier Worthy, let's see here. I'll get his picture up real quick. Let's see what he's going for right now. I want to say, I hope that it's not too expensive. Let's see. He is going for, so I think we touched on that with the Olave one. Let's see. Derrick Henry for Xavier Worthy. We already talked about that. Gibbs for Worthy and Debo. I would not do that. Let's see. Would I prefer Waddle or Xavier Worthy right now? Probably still Waddle, knowing that Tua probably comes back relatively soon. Mark Cooper and Zeke are Worthy. I think I actually take Worthy side, but that's like probably about as expensive as I'll pay. Metcalf for Worthy and B-Rob. If I was down bad, this is a start 8. So in a 2 wide receiver, 2 flex league, and I was down horrendous, I wouldn't hate this. Like if Metcalf, if my RB1 went down and it was a hero RB build and all of a sudden I need a running back, I wouldn't hate that at all. I would do Zack Moss straight up for Xavier Worthy. Jordan Mason for Xavier Worthy and a running back. I keep on saying like Jordan Mason as a sell. I do want to say I am not team, like we're going to have a sell video tomorrow. I am not team sell Jordan Mason, but I am team sell Jordan Mason if he's like not getting in your lineup, right? Like if he is on your bench because your running backs are so good, 100% go flip Jordan Mason for a wide receiver and a piece. Let's find one more maybe. Wow, would I do Puka for Xavier Worthy and a piece? If I needed immediate production, I would. All right, I think that's enough for that one. Now, our 6th target here that I wanted to talk about is Zack Moss. Now, Zack Moss, he has completely owned me so far this season. We were big Chase Brown people. Chase Brown is an afterthought. All right, Chase Brown, 25% of the snaps. Maybe late season, he comes on, he climbs up the depth chart, but right now Zack Moss is dominating everything. He has dominated the touches. He has dominated the snaps, right? This is from the utilization report over at Fantasy Life. 74% of the snaps, 64% of the rush attempts, 53% of the routes, 8% of the targets. Short down and distance, the inside the 5 stuff, long down and distance. Like he is the passing game guy. He is the goal line guy. He is the guy in all situations here. And I think when we look at the Bengals, right, and I will say Zack Moss is the RB28, which is fine, but these guys can sometimes be really easy to acquire where it's like, oh, it's an RB3 and the Bengals kind of suck, but the Bengals are 0-2 for the 5th time in 6 seasons, which is pretty crazy for how good they've been. But you get a crazy schedule for Zack Moss here. You get Washington, Carolina, and New York in 3 of their next 4 games immediately. Like right now, this week is versus Washington. So that's a huge game for Zack Moss. This is a team that their offensive line is much improved. They have top 5 numbers in ESPN's pass block win rate and run block win rate. So that's all huge. He's an easy RB2 in all of those matchups versus Washington, Carolina, the Giants, etc. He is out-touching Chase Brown. He's the number 1 running back to own here. So if I had a spot where I really needed a running back and, maybe you drafted Rico Dowdle and you can't rely on him in the RB2 spot and you're in a situation where it's like a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex and you can afford to pay up for RB2, you can go ahead. If it's a 0 RB team and you're just like, enough of punting these 2 RB spots, or we just need a running back in general, I think that Zack Moss can make a lot of sense. So let's see what he's going for right now. I hope it's got to be cheap, man. It's got to be really not all that expensive. Let's see. Deontay for Zack Moss, yeah. Kyron for Zack Moss and Keenan Allen, no thank you. You know what, dude? If I had Cooper Kupp, there's no way this is on the table, but if I had Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, and Zack Moss, I would do that all day long. Isaiah Likely for Zack Moss. That's close. If you were one of those guys out there that drafted Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, I would cash out Isaiah Likely for that price. Chris Godwin for Zack Moss and George Pickens. You know what? I don't think Chris Godwin's a sell candidate, but if I needed a running back badly, I would make this trade. Let's find one more. I wouldn't do any of these. Pollard, no. Aiyuk, no. I would do this. If I could do Jalen Warren straight up for Zack Moss, I would, but I can't imagine somebody doing just a straight up running back swap. But I think you guys get the gist. Keenan Allen for Zack Moss, that's fine by me. I'm not crazy on Keenan Allen this year. But let's go on to our next one. This is my 7th trade target here for this week. Let's talk about George Pickens. He still was somebody that was so elusive for me, George Pickens. If you guys remember the high stakes live streams we did, I could never get him on a managed team. I always was trying to set myself up in spots to get him. He never could get to me. I took him a bunch in best ball. He was someone that I said, if someone's going to have that year 3 breakout this year, I think it's going to be George Pickens. Now, I don't want to, I'm not going to victory lap this because, of course, he is the wide receiver 44 right now, right? So the breakout has not happened, but I feel very good about the bet on the talent here. He has looked like a monster so far this season. He's the wide receiver, 44 right now, but he just looks like a guy who, like we talked about, we called him as if someone's going to be this year's DJ Moore and just exceed really bad quarterback play, it would be George Pickens, and I still feel that way. He had a down start, but he just got shadowed by A.J. Terrell on the Falcons in week 1, and then Pat Surtain in week 2 on the Broncos, and despite that kind of coverage, he's still been fine, right? Wide receiver 44, his first week he had 13-ish points. This week, he almost had a monster day, but shout out to Ian Hartitz. He does these things where he looks at the almost touchdowns in his sheesh report. George Pickens 2 for 29, but he had a 51-yard catch over Surtain, nullified on a hold. He had a 6-yard touchdown nullified by an OPI. He had a 37-yard catch on Surtain, DPI, so it didn't count. He could have had a monster day with a touchdown. He would have had over 100 yards. He would have been a monster in a game where there was no scoring. He's shadowed by Surtain all game. He genuinely looks unguardable. He looks really good. Shout out to the Fantasy Points crew with Scott Barrett and Ryan Heath and all those guys. They've made this average separation score metric that kind of combines a bunch of stuff. I want to say it takes from NGS's separation, and separation is something that I've been skeptical of in the past, but it's something I'm more open to. It does gauge for us a wide receiver's ability to get open and draw targets. And George Pickens, right? Scott Barrett says here, no players have impressed me more this season than George Pickens. He's ranked top 6 in average separation score in both week 1 and week 2. And that was against, again, A.J. Terrell, Pat Surtain. He is also 7th in first downs per out run, which is a stat we really like. He's moving the chains when he runs a route. He is the one who's getting the first downs, getting the big plays that helps his team win. He's 15th in first read target share, so most of the pass plays are going towards him. He has a 12.9 ADOT, so he's getting a lot of these targets downfield, which means he can, despite bad quarterback play with Fields, and it's actually pretty funny that he has Fields as his quarterback because we just saw this with DJ Moore, and that to me was the comparison. But with a 12.9 ADOT, he can then be efficient without the quarterback being efficient, if that makes sense, where you're so far downfield that all of your targets just inherently carry more fantasy points with them because there's going to be more yards per reception and so on. So George Pickens to me is kind of the perfect buy low candidate here. I think that he is very much going to be in every week wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 type boom bust player. Now in terms of what it takes to buy him, I'm actually very curious what it would take to buy Pickens. Let's see. So, wow, would I do Jameson Williams straight up for George Pickens? To me, that's lateral. I would stay away there. Ridley for George Pickens, I would do that in a heartbeat. Singletary for George Pickens, I would. I don't think that that's going to be on the table, though. Judy and Zack Moss. I mean, yeah, I would. I don't think that's going to be on the table, though, but I 100% would. Pollard or Pickens? If I didn't need Pollard, I would. If I had T. Higgins and somebody was interested in T. Higgins for George Pickens, I would as well. I can't imagine that being on the table. Let's find one more. Wow, Saquon or Achane and Pickens. Wow. That's a really close one. I think I would, but that's the highest price that I would pay just based on the market. I would have Achane and Saquon pretty close. So if I could get a free Pickens, I absolutely would. And then we have Blake Corum, Zack Moss. I mean, that's for sure. That's automatic. So some of these prices really aren't that crazy to get George Pickens. See if you can buy low and, sell a running back to somebody that needs a running back and you get Pickens in return. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. And then I did want to touch on one more that's cheaper. Odunze. Now, this is only if you can get him for dirt cheap right now, and I imagine maybe you can, right? Everyone is off the Chicago Bears. They're really bad. Now, if you want to wait a couple weeks and buy them, you can. I will say they have a game versus the Colts this week, and if they just something clicked and Caleb looked really good against a team that got killed by the Packers this week, this Colts defense is just unserious. So if there was ever a bounce back spot for the Bears, it would be here. But Odunze has been unstartable. The Chicago Bears have looked awful. But we know rookie wide receivers get better as the year goes on. When it comes to Odunze, I'm a huge believer in his talent. Top 10 pick, really good route runner. He just hasn't been himself, right? He had a knee injury he suffered in week 1. He kind of toughed it out in week 2. he's someone you buy, and it's not to start him, it's not to fill a need, it's just to have a guy that you stash on your bench, and then hopefully by week 8, 9, 10 plus, you can put him in your lineup, and he's a really good receiver down the stretch once Caleb figures it out, and once Rome Odunze is back to full health. So this is like an extreme buy low. But let's see. I am curious. I have to imagine that Rome Odunze is like selling for really cheap right now over out there in your classic redraft leagues here. Swift for Rome Odunze, I probably wouldn't. Let's see. So, like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, if I could do Downs for Odunze, I absolutely would. If I could do Zamir White for Odunze, I absolutely would. This one's actually really close. I probably wouldn't, but, like, these are what I'm talking about. Like, if you have a vet, like a dusty vet, like Lockett or something that's just not making it into your lineup, change those guys out for Rome Odunze just to get some upside for late season. Closer curve for Rome Odunze, I would. Eckler for Rome Odunze, I would if I didn't need Eckler. Sutton for Rome Odunze, I would as well. So there's like some vets that maybe have like bigger name value, and maybe somebody thinks that they can put them in the lineup right away, and you can kind of do that one for one and be like, yo, like Andre Yoshivas, he's playing Washington this week. You need a wide receiver start, I'll give you him. You give me Rome Odunze, we'll both win. I am curious because I think in a lot of home leagues he was probably more like an 8th, 9th, 10th round pick, Rome Odunze. So if you could buy low on like those kind of prices now, especially after the slow start, I absolutely would. Because like I said, I think that things will click for Caleb eventually. I think that Rome Odunze, once he gets healthy and the offense starts clicking, he will be a really fun player down the stretch. Now that is going to do it for us today. As always, that was 8 trade targets. If you want to see my rest of season rankings, those should come out on Wednesday around probably like somewhere between like 1 to 4 p.m. over on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ron Stewart. You can look at my rest of season rankings so you can see, oh, well, this is where Ron has Christian McCaffrey. I'm trying to sell him. Who are the running backs and wide receivers he has ranked above McCaffrey? So you can kind of see where I have players ranked rest of season. You can make trades based off of those on the Patreon. You can find the Patreon in the description and the comment section down below. As always, I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm